anyways, so how can you become a better programmer based on the certain knowledge that you might need to seek? And this is what I've noticed. The easiest way to learn coding is to really, and as well as programming, is to understand exactly how other people have done it. For example, take the existing coding languages that exist right now, understand the ins and outs of those. Like take, for example, Python. Memorize everything about Python. Figure out its codes, its everything. Then figure out, and then, okay, so then what you want to do is when it comes time to make an actual program from start to finish, you want to understand what that coding that you're going to need to write for that particular program. And then what you want to do is figure out how can you achieve that with the coding language that you're already, how can you take the already existing coding languages that you're using and write that program with it. So how can you take, like, for example, if you were using Python, for example, how could you take Python and make a program out of that? What coding can you achieve with Python, for example? That'd be what you would want to figure out, in other words. But it came to my surprise, how easy it is when you really start to think about, like, how to, if you really organize yourself and understand how to prevent things like overstacking and writing the wrong errors, the whole thing becomes a lot more manageable because, one, you start seeing what works and what doesn't. But again, take existing programs, for example, and try to figure out like how they store their files, what they don't do, and just kind of see like how they did it. Because if you can reverse engineer something enough, especially a program that already exists, you can learn a lot from somebody else's success. You can learn a lot from just listening to other people too. If you listen to the right people, but you never know. You might learn something, if you actually do a little bit of research into it. How can you better yourself in a situation where maybe you're just starting out? How can you take somebody that has years of experience in coding or programming and then figure out how they went about doing it? How do you, So really that's the mindset you want to have. You want to figure out how to make these programs work. How can you write the codes for those particular? And for the most part, when you're using coding, it's kind of interesting. You're taking something that already exists, and then you're just creating new stuff with it. Same thing with, again, like Python. You're taking a list of codecs, and you're using that to write newer codes, and then publish those. For example, it's really interesting. Or like certain video game RPG makers, for example. You're taking a program that exists and you're trying to make other ones with it. It's interesting, how people have gone about doing that. You create these programming engines, these software engines that are allowed to render into something else. It's based on whatever the creator decides to implement, and it's mostly based on the understanding of how programming works and the person themselves, what their motivation and deterior is. So hopefully this helps. Again, favorite this video, comment if you like it. If you have any requests you want me to help you out with anything, let me know. I can give you some advice on that. Programming's been something I've been trying to figure out for years, but it's like the more programs you look at and you really see like how they are in their final stage, you really do understand that it really is probably one of the greatest achievements that anybody could ever achieve. Because you see like somebody or a team of people have actually done